Ladies and gents, welcome to a brand new season of Showtime. I'm your host, Aaron Lyngdoh. We started Showtime to highlight the journey, efforts and achievements of people and communities from Northeast India and beyond to the world. Well, today, we get bigger and louder. Are you ready for this? It's an endeavor of passion. Bigger and louder. With a lot of surprises. Showtime is back. Well, it's time to shake some things up. This week, we take Showtime out of the studio and onto the streets. We traveled to the Akshar Forum Model School here in Guwahati to give you all the lowdown on what makes this unique school tick. Please brace yourselves for my first guest this season. The Akshar School, also known as the Akshar Forum, strives to combat unequal access to education in India by providing all students with an equal opportunity and access to attend school. Well, the Akshar School, a private school located in Assam, India, is revolutionizing the Indian education system. Well, founded by Professor Alaka Sharma in 2016, the school allows students from low-income families to receive a quality education in exchange for plastic waste. Yes, you heard me right, plastic waste. So, what is the Akshar education model? How did the idea come about? And more importantly, why the need? Well, I had the privilege to interact with Professor Alaka Sharma, who is the founder and executive director of Akshar Foundation. Take a look. First of all, Professor Sharma, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
My first question to you, Akshar Forum's mission is to help every school in the world place the solving of social problems at the heart of their curriculum. Why do you think that's imperative?
Well, there are many issues here, but the basic issue is that the intergenerational cycle of poverty should be challenged, and we want a better place, more sustainable economy, more sustainable society, resilient society and a democratic society. And good education is the only way we can provide that.
So what is the Akshar Forum model all about?
Well, at Akshar we try to teach them a basic academics along with vocational training. We try to build up team spirit. We try to inculcate the desire to learn. We make the education process or the learning process very enjoyable. In short, we are training the future citizens of India.
That's interesting. So how did the idea come about?
Well, I've been an MLA, I've been an academic, I have some administrative experience and many others. So also Mazin and Parmita. So in 2013, we all formed together Akshar Foundation with the view that we can attack the intergenerational cycle of poverty.
Right.
So poor becomes poorer, rich becomes richer. And the only way to solve this problem is good and quality education.
So how does one, balance traditional academics with practical vocational training?
A very interesting question. Ideally, the vocational training itself should lead to academics. Like if a child wants to learn English, maybe the child may be asked to write a script of a drama. And through that, he may learn or he or she may learn English. So Mahatma Gandhi had also talked about that Nai Talim concept, because abstract knowledge is of not any use.
True.
Hands-on knowledge is required. So, but even then we have a curriculum, so we abide by the curriculum, but we make the process very interactive.
Yes.
We have the concept of peer group learning, so whereby our students are also our teachers.
All right.
So when they teach others, they become better teachers, they become better students. So by all these means, we try to incorporate traditional academics as well as practical training.
And Professor, walk us through some of the challenges, while implementing all of this right from the inception.
Well, initially we did not get students because most of the initial students were child laborers, and the parents were not interested in sending them to school with the fear that the breadwinning member will attend the school, what will happen to the household.
True.
So that was the biggest challenge. So we had to go house to house. Parmita had gone to house and requested parents, please send your children to school. And then the next important challenge was that when we bring these children, we wanted to give them meaningful, relevant education, which will help them to stand on their feet and which will make them a better citizen. So devising the curriculum, we grew as the school grew. And so that was the challenge. And now our major challenge is how do we scale up the model? Because running a school in one remote corner of Assam doesn't influence the system. We would want that all schools in Assam have access to this model, and that everywhere we can give quality education, not just Assam, Meghalaya, all the neighboring states, the whole of India, and for that matter, it's a global concern.
True, true. So, how has the response been so far from, let's say, both the teachers and the students?
Well, these teachers, some of them are from the local community.
Okay.
And we don't insist on very highly, with high degree of qualification. Because to be a good teacher, degrees don't really make sense, especially at the primary level. And at the secondary level, most of the knowledge is available on internet.
Very true.
So we have to inculcate the spirit of inquiry. We have to make the knowledge acquiring process enjoyable. So all that we have done. And one more thing I would like to mention, that we have the system where if a teacher doesn't perform as per the mandate of Akshar,
Yes.
we allow them to go.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
that has helped us to maintain a very high level of proficiency. As you must have seen,
Yes.
that sharp on the dot of 8
o'clock.
the school has started.
Yes. Coming to a very interesting question, because the school doesn't charge any school fees per se. So a lot of people must be curious, I'm sure, as to how does the school sustains itself financially?
That's a very important question, because sustainability also depends upon the financial sustainability.
Very true.
As such, the CSR funds of the oil companies were of help to us initially.
Okay.
We have friends donating for our cause, and we have people who give in kind.
Alright.
In fact, we request people to give us in kind, because most people don't want to give cash for the fear that it may be misused. The history of NGO in this region is very questionable, so people are afraid. So CSR fund basically, and donations from the well-wishers.
Okay.
This is the source.
Like you mentioned earlier, Professor, that you plan to replicate the same model, let's say, to other schools here in Guwahati and beyond. So how easy or difficult is it for you to do that? How do you see yourself maneuver through all these challenges that probably teachers from other schools would look at the model, etc.?
Well, that is a tall order, I should say. That is mainly because the established order is used to functioning in a certain way.
Yes.
So now the digital learning and interactive learning, these are new concepts.
New concepts.
So
True.
it takes time to get absorbed. So initially we find some resistance, but eventually we will overcome those.
Yes.
And parents understand the value of good education. Even students understand the value of good education. And the government is also concerned and committed to give better quality of education to the students. And besides, for any state, trained human resource
True.
is the most important capital for further growth. And governments all over have understood this. And if you have good education, then the problem of unemployment is reduced, the problem of lawlessness is reduced, and we get a cohesive society. So everybody sees merit in this.
True.
So hopefully we'll be able to sail through it.
Well, that brings me to my follow-up question. So this year, the school intends to, invite teachers from 5 schools here in Guwahati for a workshop. Has that happened? Give us a little bit of insight.
Yes, actually Government of Assam through Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan mission, they have given us a mandate to operate in 100 government schools on Akshar model.
Okay, 100 government
100
schools.
government schools. So far we have started work in 3 schools and 2 more are in the pipeline. So we feel that if the teachers come here and see the model themselves, then it will be better for them to implement the model, to get involved.
Makes sense.
So some of the teachers have come here, but a proper formal training we haven't been able to organize yet. Informally we have been able to train them.
And I did a little bit of research online wherein you implemented the model in a failed school in New Delhi.
Yes.
What impact did it have on the school?
Well, the impact was dramatic. The school where we worked, most of the children came from an orphanage and from a nearby basti. And orphanage in Delhi or orphanage everywhere have their own stories. The children feel that we are government's children and nobody can touch us. So initially we were told that don't scold them, be cautious with them, they may do anything. But slowly and gradually we won over their confidence. And once we won over the confidence, once they started enjoying the process, once they enjoyed that, we gave them a lot of respect and the self-esteem grew.
True.
And then they became our best friends and best teachers and best students. So the inspector of schools wanted us to adopt many more schools, and which maybe we would have done, but because of COVID we had to wind up the operation. And in the meantime the Government of Assam opportunity came. So since this is our home, we are more comfortable here.
Very true. And lastly, Professor, how does a typical day at Akshar Forum look like?
Well, for that I would request you to see and record our proceedings, because a typical day looks like when the teachers involve the students in enjoyable learning, and students also teach others. There are games, there is a learning on tablets, and a lot of gardening and other activities take place. There is some meal also, and you will find that teachers, students, everyone is so joyful and they are very excited to be at the school. So I think better have this journey through the lens of your camera.
Brilliantly put there, Professor Alaka Sharma. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Well, since Team Akshar Forum has been very kind, I invited a few students over to our studios for a quick recce, if you will. Check this out. Well, I thoroughly had a great time interacting with the kids. Precious moments. We will take a quick breather here on the show. I will return with the man behind the Environment Conservation Organization, a forest garden tucked away in the hills of Darjeeling. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, viewers. My next guest runs an environment conservation organization called TD Forest Garden. He believes that nature has its own ways of healing. Founded in 2016, TD Forest Garden work currently revolves around experiential environment education, regenerative tourism, natural farming, decentralized waste management solutions, and sustainable land and building design consultation. Say hello to the founding gardener, Utsow Pradhan. Utsow, firstly, why TD Forest Garden and not TD Farmhouse, if you will?
Thank you, Aaron. Yes, TD is a forest garden, unlike a farmhouse, because I think it's time that we move beyond the concept of farmland, because it has not done us good in the last 10,000 years as a civilization, because we've lost biodiversity while trying to farm a particular land and cut down the forests. And if we continue in the same stretch, then we actually would not have much time left on this planet. So for us to kind of survive as a species, we need to increase the biodiversity. We need to respect the right to live for other beings also on this planet. So that's why a forest garden, which means more biodiversity, and which also means greater nutrient density in the foods that we grow and forage.
So when did you start the organization, and give us an insight of the work that revolves around it?
So TD as an organization started in 2016, and it's a permaculture based organization, which in simple words mean that we work with Mother Nature in everything that we do, and we try and mimic the way that she works on her own. And we are working in the sectors of responsible tourism, community development, and of course, restoration of a dump yard back into a food forest, and also restoration of a river. So yeah, so the organization has evolved in the last 6 years since its set up. So in fact, instead of we saying that we've chosen certain causes to fight, the causes have chosen us. Like for instance, we didn't realize the extent to which this particular land was polluted, but I would say, for lack of a better word, this land where we are located was molested for about 20 years. So now we've planted about 600 trees, and we tried to restore it through permaculture design. And similar is the case with the river also, which was a dumping river that we are trying to restore it back into a mountain brook with fresh spring water.
Now, what is permaculture, and why do you feel the need that more and more people should perceive it?
Well, in all honesty, we don't have a choice. What I mean by that is, if you look at all the red alerts given by the scientific community, we are going through a 6-mass extinction right now, which basically means that we are facing unprecedented loss of not just living beings, but also of species, you know. So according to the latest UN report, there are about 1 million species at a threat of extinction. So unless and until we change our act, and we do it quickly, it is not a climate crisis, it is actually a human existential crisis. So our house is on fire. And permaculture is one way of putting down that fire.
Well, away from TD a little bit now, tell me more of yourself and the tipping point at which, you decide to give the garden a form.
So I'm a Darjeeling. I'm born and brought up in Darjeeling. And after spending my formative years here, I lived in the cities for almost 2 decades. I studied there, I worked there, and I had a great time. working in the corporate gave me a lot of joy, being part of different startups and being part of this exciting world where you try and explore the creative side of yourself. But however, there was this time when I felt that, okay, I need to kind of do something different and do something on my own. So that's when I happened to bounce across this concept of permaculture while traveling in a farm in Uttarakhand. And I volunteered there in a permaculture farm. And the ideas of permaculture actually resonated a lot with a few things or a few concepts or ideas, if you may say so, that had already subscribed in my head, which I didn't know that it was called permaculture then. So I did my PDC, which is a permaculture design certification course in 2016, and then I happened to take up this TD project here in Darjeeling.
You know, Utsow, what's intriguing to me is that TD natural dwellings. What can one expect?
Well, I think what you can expect is dwellings that's sprouting up in the forest without looking out of place. So most of the time when we construct a house for ourselves, I don't know why, but we end up making it so monstrous in all its concrete glory that it's an eyesore. So unfortunately, most of the cities have become an eyesore right now. And when you travel, like let's say you said you wanted to come to Darjeeling, right? So if you come to Darjeeling, you don't want to stay in a very similar looking room that you'd get anywhere across the world and have tile bathrooms and look out of the window. It's like similar, very curated gardens. Okay, very artificial in its nature. So you'd want to see something that's local to Darjeeling, right? And that's exactly what our dwellings give you. It has the local architecture, and we've tried to revive it to a certain extent, okay, with our limited knowledge that we have. And also we've tried to kind of marry it with modern knowledge and practices on how to work with natural resources, renewable resources. That's bamboo, mud, stones, wood. So so when you come to TD dwellings, the natural dwellings, you come and live as part of the surroundings rather than trying to stand out and say, hey, I am this particular building that's kind of ruling over the surroundings.
To be very honest, I can't wait to plan my next trip there. Now, Utsow, in one of your videos, you introduce yourself as a volunteer, a gardener, and of course, the founder. Talk to me about the volunteer bit.
Sure. So, by its very nature, the idea of TD is for it to become a melting pot for people looking at alternative living and people looking at questioning the norms that's established in the society, saying that, okay, this is the way that life should be lived. So this is a place where anyone can come in, okay, and volunteer and try and learn what is it that you can do to fight against the human existential crisis. Again, not climate crisis. So what are the small steps that you can take towards natural living? What is it about permaculture that would interest you? Because it's a very vast subject. It's a lifelong journey. Probably one lifetime would not be enough to explain or explore all facets of permaculture. So we've touched a tip of it and we've been fascinated by it. And the volunteering aspect would kind of also, help you explore permaculture in a very in a site that has a few models in which we can demonstrate that it works, and it works wonderfully well.
Well, very interesting. For now, are there any projects or workshops in the pipeline?
We do have so we've curated a couple of courses, okay, and the permaculture design certification course here that we do in partnership with Teaching Where It Matters. That course we call it MATO, okay, which in Darjeeling lingo means soil. Okay, so it's about reconnecting it to your soil. And then we've curated an introduction to permaculture, okay, which we're calling it Bijan, okay, which means seed. Okay, so uh, the Bijan workshop, which is a 5-day workshop, is something that we intend to do, let's say, 3 or 4 times in a year. And the full-fledged permaculture course is something that we intend to do once in a year in the month of November.
Well, let me hear it from you. What are a few things which we can do at a personal level to help heal Mother Nature?
I think first and foremost, I think we need to get the mindset right. Mother Nature does not need saving. Okay, she will evolve and she will continue to evolve, irrespective of whether we are there or not. Right? It is us who need to put out the fire in our own home. Okay, in our only home right now, that's planet Earth. Right. So we need to protect our home. We need to guard against maldevelopment. Okay, we need to guard against things like, let's say, palm oil cultivation or big dams, or anything that kind of destroys the biodiversity of the place and anything that alters the natural balance. Okay, and so I think if we get the mindset right, then it would be easier for us to take the next steps. And in terms of taking the next steps, I would say, to put it very simply, start composting. That's something that every individual can do. And that's something that every individual uh, would be able to do wherever they are located. You don't need a backyard or a garden or a forest to start composting. You can do it while you're staying in a one-room house. We call it the alchemy of making black gold. Okay, so to compose, that's the first step that you could do. Second is, I would say, reduce consumption. If you're able to take care of these two, then you would naturally gravitate towards living a natural life.
Now, what do you reckon the government should do or shouldn't do to support initiatives of similar environmental conservation organizations?
I think at a governmental level, we need to really question this whole model of development. The whole benchmark and the metric itself is so flawed. It's based on GDP. It's gross domestic product. That means you are asking people to buy, buy, buy. Like I said, it's a downward spiral. I think the first thing that the government should do is just question. And you don't need to ape like the West and say that, hey, but this is something that they consider as development. So we should also be developed in a similar way, right? To put it in perspective, this is not something that is new, what I'm talking about. This is something that even the father of a nation, Mahatma Gandhi, back then in 1928, okay, mind you, that's almost like 100 years ago, 1928, he had quoted, we can quote him, if India and China are to ape the Western model of industrialization, we are going to strip the world bare like locusts. It cannot, the world development cannot continue to happen in the way that it's going right now. I would say from a concept of a gross domestic product or GDP, we need to move towards something called a GNA, okay, which is a gross natural abundance. If you do not work against your extinction, what are you working against, right? So,
And if I may give you a last comment to make, what would it be?
I would say if we are to make the world a better place, we need to live in harmony. Okay, we need to live in harmony, not just between ourselves, okay, but also in harmony with Mother Nature and in harmony with the other beings with which we share this beautiful planet Earth that we call home. And I think to put it simply, I would say that if all of us have a common goal to strive for, okay, and very simple goal, and achieving this goal is when we think beyond. Okay, so the three simple goals that I have for everyone that we should all strive for to make the world a better place is to have a pure air to breathe, okay, pure water that we can drink straight out of our streams, and soil that is uncontaminated and in which we can grow our own food. Okay. And I think pure air, pure water, pure soil, I think if we are able to focus on these three things in a very simple way, I think we would make the world a better place.
I reckon it's time we all learn and unlearn a lot of things to find solutions to most of the problems that we see around us today. The time is now to teach ourselves the art of working with Mother Nature. Utsow Pradhan, very insightful. Time now for another short break. Up next is an ace violinist and legendary corporate trainer who's spearheading the movement of healing through music. You won't want to miss that. Welcome back, viewers. My next guest has broken the myth that music is merely for entertainment. She is a recipient of multiple prestigious awards, a mentor for wellness and diversity, and for the unversed, a familiar figure on various national and international forums and festivals. Presenting Sunita, Khaund, Bhuyan. You mentioned in one of your interviews that you are very attached to your early training in music and your culture. Give us context, please.
Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for the warm invitation to Northeast Live. So happy to be here. Of course, I would say that if not for my mother, I would be standing here and talking about music because I learned, or rather I had the opportunity, the blessing to learn from my mother's womb since I was there with her, because she was always a performing and practicing violinist and a very serious devotee of music. Music was like a religion to her. And she ensured that I learned the violin. I wasn't very keen to learn the violin because it's a very overwhelming instrument. It's very difficult for a young girl, for a young child to practice, get the balance of the violin and the bow together. Very, very difficult. But well, she ensured, she was strict, she was loving, she was deeply intense in her training. And I can definitely say that I am because of she is. And those few years during my teenage, I felt that, oh my God, what an exploited teenage, because I couldn't go out and play much. I couldn't do a lot of things that my friends were doing. But when I turned 20, 21 and started using music for larger audiences, when people started looking up and saying, oh my God, can the violin do this? Can the violin do that? I felt so empowered. And I think I thank my mother for being strict with me, for forcing me to learn an amazing instrument like the violin.
Now, from being a full-time HR professional to creating a leadership program on well-being and creativity through music. Now, what made you consider that option?
Well, as I was studying my master's in music, so my mother ensured that I did my graduation. I was one of the youngest graduates before I was 16. I had done my graduate diploma in music, which is called Sangeet Visharad. And then I went along learning the craft. I used to spend a lot of time with even her group, our group under VG Job. And she used to take me to Kolkata with her. And as I started getting deeper into the discipline of music, the nuances, the dynamics, the structure, the theory, I realized that there is a lot in music that life can imbibe. And that was always playing on my mind. And then I did my Master of Human Resources, from the Guwahati University. And I realized that certain traits of leadership that we talk about in our business schools that young professionals should imbibe, there were all of it there in the orchestra, in the medium of the orchestra. And then after I finished my MBA, I did my master's in music, and there I discovered and stumbled upon a reality of music therapy, the impact of sound, how sound impacts the brain and how the body reacts to it, and how it can become an amazing recuperative tool, the production of endorphins. and how across the world in clinics, rehabilitation centers, prenatal, postnatal clinics, music is being used as a very powerful recuperative theory. I put both of these together. I looked at the therapeutic power of music. I looked at the metaphor of the orchestra, of working together, working with differences, working towards a common goal, working towards, with people with different skill sets like the orchestra. And that's when I designed a training program called Sahapriya on leadership values and the art of collaboration.
So are we now looking at a possibility of, integrating sound and music within the future of healthcare?
It's already integrated, Aaron, because across certain institutes in India already music is being used. In NIMHANS, music is being used already as a therapy, and I'm privileged to announce to say here that I've been working closely with the National Brain Research Center with Professor Mandal, who is doing a project, who's from Johns Hopkins, and who's doing a project on the impact of sound and music on cognitive preservation, meaning how our brain cells can become healthier with sound. So various kinds of sound in a laboratory environment during different times of the day, different times and different kinds of state of being of the mind. Please understand, it's a recuperative tool. It's an alternative therapy. It's non-invasive. Hence, it needs a lot of emotional balancing of both your mind, your body, your thought, your attitude. Like this, even in the medical world, faith moves mountains. If you have faith in the doctor, you can go through the most complicated surgery. Here it is even more. We've got to be ready to be able to take that kind of therapy. Hence, as you would say, it's already started across the world. It has to be, dedicated in schools and colleges. We want our younger generation, we want the government, the policymakers to ensure that along with academic progress, there is also cognitive progress, there is emotional progress, there is emotional quotient of the children developing, and nothing like music, sports, dance to get this going for children. Then you have healthy youngsters. A healthy youngster is a happy individual. A happy professional is a productive professional. That's the linkage to business.
Ms. Bhuya, in your own words, musicians perform with each other, not for each other. And that's the art of collaboration. Now, what's your most memorable collaboration so far?
Yes, because the minute a leader thinks that someone is working for him or her, it doesn't become a team. It becomes a hierarchy, right? As soon as we feel that we are working together, it becomes a team. It becomes a forum. It becomes a positive environment. Hence, I say that musicians work with each other. And when we talk of collaboration, yes, I have collaborated first with my mother. You must have all these years seen me as a young girl playing with my mother across various stages. Like I said, I am because of her. And then, of course, playing with our own guru, Pandit V.G. Jog. It was so surreal, the way he used to give me the platform, the way he used to project and help me play with him. It was like almost my grandfather letting me play and sharing the stage with me. Those were privileges that I had because my mother was a student. But some memorable collaborations have been with Pandit Vishwa Mohan Bhatt, with a lot of co-fellow, musicians, with musicians in Scotland, the Gaelic fiddlers, who play with me in Scotland, or with whom I play in Scotland. And most importantly, our Assamese folk musicians, the Thol, the Peppa, the flute. So there are lots of names to be taken. Like I said, I don't want to take the names. But today, when I'm going to perform for you, I'll have two of my key collaborators with me, Bhushan on the tabla and Ron on the piano. But the most moving, the most close to my heart, collaboration and the intent to work together has been with my son during the pandemic. Ranajit is a Western classical pianist and I'm an Indian classical violinist. But because we're thrown together inside a house for 1.5 years during the lockdown, with no other way but to play together. And people ask me, but he's Western, you're Indian. I said, it doesn't matter what culture you belong to. The intent to come together makes us work together. And in the same way, music is 7 notes only. It doesn't matter whether you're Western, Indian, Bollywood, Hollywood, rock, jazz, pop, Celtic. The 7 notes are universal. I think the most memorable partnership that I think I've developed is a 22-year-old pianist, completely trained in Western classical, who played by the ear because the genes allowed him to, and the intent and the bit of the whip, ensured that he had to play with me, and I, an Indian violinist, had to play with him. I think that's the most moving collaboration for me now, because he's going away to pursue his master's. So I don't have a partner in crime for the next few years.
Now, how do you reckon music transcends geographies, cultures, and musical genres?
Why don't I show it to you with a piece of music, which is a mix of Scottish and Assamese bihu. Yeah, and as soon as I play that, you will get to see how the 7 notes come together in 2 different genres.
Well, this is one of my favorite pieces on fusion of Assamese folk with a bit of Scottish reels. I've played it many times, but I can't resist to play it yet one time now for Northeast Live. On the piano, we have Ranajit. We don't have the Scottish drums or the bagpipes, but we have Bhuyan on the tabla, who's going to try and give it the feel of the Scottish reel, like love is universal, humanity is universal, music is universal. Bholuka bahore akhi oi moina oi bholuka bahore oi akhi botah borokhune undulayani se oi amaku nothoba rakhi.
And just out of curiosity, who do you look up to for inspiration?
There are so many people across the world that I look up to for inspiration. Musicians. I just wouldn't say that I only look up to musicians. I look up to my mother first, because of her complete abandon and complete offering of herself to the craft of music. She is not interested in appreciation, in awards, in the kind of fame that we artists are always running after. And that belief that she has, that the deeper the craft, the wider your expertise, that belief that she has in the power of the craft is my biggest inspiration. We artists from the younger generation, we are so excited with awards, so excited with big stages, the lights, the fact that I'm in Island City Studio in Mumbai with a fantastic group of people makes me feel so good about what I'm doing. But for my mother and their generation, it's the music. That's the power. It's the power of the craft. I think that inspires me a lot. So when I see people who are doing work because of who they are and not what they want to be, that really inspires me. And I would say the list of people like musicians. Yesterday we met Medha Patkar in an award ceremony, and the way she still keeps that river Narmada, it's so special and so refreshing to see passion towards something the world is against, but yet she's still after that. So true to your craft. I think that's the biggest inspiration.
All right, well, I want you to complete this sentence for me. Music scene in the Northeast.
Wow. I mean, wherever I go, as soon as I say I'm from Assam, from the Northeast, the first thing that people ask me is, oh my God, all of you are blessed with music. Because there is something in the air, something in the whole environment, the trees, the mountains, the rivers, the lake of Shillong, the mountains and the snow in Arunachal Pradesh, the tea estates of Assam, that it is pulsating with music. There is love, there is passion, there is erotica, there is nature, there is sadness, all of it put together. So the genes of the Northeastern and definitely has music. So I'm very happy to share that the recent project I did with Zuban, and a group for women's voices had 9 Northeastern female artists come together during COP26 to sing for Mother Earth, Save Mother Earth. And the name of the song is Through Her Eyes. Can I get the chords, please, Ramaji? And this song talks about saving the earth. This is the clarion call, the only home of us human beings. And it had Tipriti Karbankar, it had Moranla, it had Manka, the Tetsio sisters, wonderful musicians coming together. And I was part of along with those rock stars too. And the key message, there was an English verse in it. Of course, we all sang in our languages. Janani I ke karu prana. These were my Assamese couplets. Janani I ke karu prana. Tumhare sarana thakuji I are sene moro. Janani I ke karu prana.
And finally, Ms. Bhuya, what are you performing for us today?
So it's wonderful to be here, Aaron, and as you wanted me to start with one of my favorite pieces from Assam, let me start with a tribute to Dr. Bhupen Hazarika, Bhupenda, the bard of the Brahmaputra, who shouted at the rivers and asked the Brahmaputra, Burhalwit, why do you keep flowing? And the song became a sensation, and he translated it to Bengali and to Assamese. But first, let me start with the Hindi version, or rather the English version that he was inspired by, Paul Robson's Old Man River. Old Man River, the Old Man River, you must say something, but don't say nothing. The Old Man River, विस्तार है अपार, प्रजा दोनों पार, करे हाहाकार, निशब्द सदा, ओ गंगा तुम, ओ गंगा बहती हो क्यों? नष्ट हुई, नैतिकता भ्रष्ट हुई, निर्लज्ज भाव से बहती हो क्यों इतिहास की पुकार करे हुनकार, इतिहास की पुकार करे हुनकार, गंगा की धार निर्बल जन को हो प्रबल संग्रामी, समाक्रांति बनाती रहे हो क्यों। Thank you. Thank you to the wonderful team of Island City Studios, starting with JJ, Arya, Aniket, the wonderful two videographers, which you can't see, they are behind the camera, Mukesh and Sameer and Mukesh. They've been on with us for the last 4 hours. And of course, Ranajit on the piano and Bhupen Hazarika on the tabla. Thank you. Thank you to Northeast Live for having us over and inviting us. Thank you, Aaron.
Well, that's the most captivated I've been in a very long time. The most sublime spectacle, period. Now, one identical trait that's apparent with all my guests this week is that they are all on a mission to break myths, a mission to heal, and a mission to make this world, our world, a better place. A big shout out to Professor Alaka Sharma, Utsow Pradhan, and Sunita Khaund for making episode 1 of season 2 worth the while. I'm Aaron Lyngdoh. This is Showtime. Until next week, goodbye.